If you didn't go to the ER after a car accident, you could still be owed a huge check. No, seriously, I didn't go to the ER and still got paid $82,000, and all I had to do was qualify. Most people think visible injuries and car damage are what determine how much you could be paid, but I had silent injuries that showed up weeks later, and my car wasn't even totaled. Here's what I didn't understand at the time. After my accident, I honestly felt okay. A little shaken up, a little sore, but nothing that screamed emergency room. So I skipped it, went home, and figured I'd see how I felt in a few days. That's what almost everyone does, and that's exactly what the insurance company is counting on. Because here's the part most people never realize. The silent injuries are the ones that could cost you the most. Whiplash, soft tissue damage, concussions that don't show up until a week later, back pain that slowly creeps in, headaches, sleep problems. These are all real injuries, they all count, and they're exactly what insurance companies quietly hope you never document properly. About 10 days after my accident, my neck started really bothering me, then my lower back. Then the headaches kicked in. When I called insurance to update them, they offered me $4,800 to close things out. Not because my case was small, but because I hadn't gone to the ER on day one, so they figured they could lowball me and I'd take it. I almost did. Then a coworker told me about the accident settlement service. It's a service designed specifically to help some accident victims get paid a way bigger check that could account for things they never would have considered. Silent injuries, delayed symptoms, ongoing doctor visits, missed work. It could help you get paid without suing the other driver, without going to court, and without having to pay expensive upfront legal fees. But here's the catch. It's not available to everyone. You have to qualify first. So I pulled up their qualification tool. 4 quick questions about my accident. Less than 30 seconds. The screen told me I qualified, and that was the moment everything changed. Once I qualified, an accident specialist took my entire case over. Zero upfront cost. No insurance calls, no paperwork, no courtroom. They did all the heavy lifting while I focused on getting better. 10 weeks later, $82,000 was in my bank account from an accident where I didn't go to the ER, where my car wasn't even totaled, and where insurance had tried to close me out for $4,800. And I'm not some exception. Take Camille. She didn't go to the ER too, felt fine for the first week, then started getting migraines and neck spasms. Insurance offered her $5,600. She qualified for the service and walked away with $124,000 in 11 weeks. Or Devin. No ambulance, no ER visit, just a shoulder issue that got worse over the next month. Insurance offered him $4,200. He qualified for the service and got $76,000 in under 9 weeks. Here's how you check if you may qualify too. Click the link, answer 4 quick questions about your accident, and the tool tells you right on the spot whether you qualify. Less than 30 seconds. Costs you nothing. If you qualify, an accident specialist could take over your case completely. Every call, every form, every negotiation, while you could just wait for your settlement. If you don't qualify, no harm done. But if you do, what you could be looking at might be completely different from what insurance is trying to hand you, and the whole thing is $0 out of pocket. No retainer, no hidden fees, no surprise bills. You don't pay a single cent unless the service actually wins you money. Just think about it for a second. What could $50,000 change for you? $100,000? $200,000? Medical bills cleared, rent covered, credit cards at zero, real breathing room instead of the stress you've been carrying since the accident. But these cases come with hard deadlines, and insurance companies know them. They stall and delay on purpose because the longer they drag it out, the closer you get to that window closing. Once it closes, they owe you nothing. I almost signed that $4,800 check because I figured skipping the ER meant my case wasn't worth much. That assumption would have cost me $77,000. The only thing that stopped me was taking 30 seconds to check. Click the link below, answer the 4 questions, and find out in under 30 seconds whether you qualify. It's free. It's fast. And if you qualify, this service could help you get paid what your case may actually be worth. Click below right now. Because the worst thing isn't finding out you don't qualify. It's never checking at all and wondering what you could have walked away with.
What is happening, party people? It is your boy, Coach Sean. What's up, Jamie? Good to see you over there in the TikTok chat. Hope you all are doing phenomenal. All right. I know I'm a little late. Excuse the tardiness. I was in here running and rushing from this lift and workout that I had. Uh, and so a few minutes late, but nonetheless, we're going to get straight into it. All right. I appreciate you guys for jumping on the stream and spending some time with your boy. If you're new, my name is Coach Sean. I'm a faith-based relationship coach, and I've helped so many people, specifically those falling in the category of anxious attachment, anxiousness, anxious attachment, all the things, become secure. I've helped so many people build healthier, happier, and whole relationships with themselves, with God, and with others, while building security that lasts beyond marriage. All right. And this is another opportunity for us to be able to build on what we've been working through in regards to our series on the dating app dilemma. I don't have a whole lot of time today, so we're just going to jump straight into it. But of course, I appreciate all the love, all the likes. Those of you who are jumping in on TikTok, if you ever join Instagram, YouTube, watch the replay, I appreciate you so much. And even if you don't catch it live, the replays are reposted over on YouTube. And this is stuff that literally so many people are going through. Number one. Number two, is easily going to be something that I eventually turn into a program that I want all of you to be able to go deeper into and not just see how it impacts your dating life, but see how it impacts your life in totality. Okay. And this is just a great opportunity for us to have another conversation and a layer to it. Okay. So if you haven't caught the previous installments, this is now part 11 of our series. So if you haven't caught the previous installments, I encourage you to go back and watch those. All right. We've covered so much ground in the matter of like 2-3 weeks. I believe it's like 3 weeks. We've been streaming pretty regularly. This has been the topic of conversation. And we've covered from psychology of men and women in dating to the psychology of the dating apps to, should Christians use dating apps? Okay. To the objections to dating apps. All right. And the legitimate experiences, statistics, numbers that we have presented on dating apps. That is information, that is valid information for us to be able to consider and weigh our options when it comes to dating and putting ourselves out there to be seen and eventually find the right person that we want to do life with. All right. And again, this series is not designed to force you to use dating apps. This series is not designed to persuade you to use dating apps. However, this is supposed to become a safe space for us to really unpack a lot of these things so that we can actually make a healthy decision on what makes the most sense for you, what aligns best with you, all right, for you to be able to experience dating, date healthily, and more importantly, realize that dating healthily has less to do with changing the external, changing the dating pool, and changing everything else around you as much as it is dealing with you and yourself inwardly so you can actually approach these things healthily. All right. And so we're diving straight into it. All right. And we're going to now cover the topic of the dating app profiles. Okay. So, yes, we covered that last episode, which was literally yesterday if you're in real time with me. All right. But in this regard, okay, we're talking about the red, yellow, and green flags to pay attention to in dating apps. All right. Now, of course, you probably have heard a lot of conversations centered on red flags in relationships, red flags to look out for in somebody being a narcissist, a gaslighter, a manipulator, red flags to look out for someone who's serious versus unserious, somebody who's committed and married versus somebody who's single, red flags on all kinds of different directions. Okay. And yes, that is a part of a potential conversation that we can build here. However, we're just talking specifically on things that you should look for that allows you to maximize your experience and opportunities in dating apps. Okay. Because a lot of people are not coming in with strategies. A lot of people are not coming in with focuses. A lot of people are not coming in with different directions. Okay. Everybody's coming in with, hey, I'm just lonely. I'm tired of being single. I'm tired of laying in my bed alone at night. I'm tired of not having nobody to talk to and send good morning text to. And so I'm just going to get on a dating app with no plan, no intentionality, no direction, and just hope for the best. And then you kind of wonder why you don't get the results you're looking for because you're not moving intentionally. Okay. Because you're not moving with a strategy, because you're not moving with a system, right? More importantly, because you're not even making the intentionality to actually focus on becoming the right person and remaining in the lane of becoming the right person for who you're looking for. Okay. So many people are trying to come to dating apps and think they have it all figured out. Okay. You think you have it all layered out. It's all good. It's all well. It's all what it's supposed to be. And in reality, okay, we forget the main piece when it comes to navigating relationships and even dating apps. All right. One, you're not matching with everybody every day. Two, you're not finding everything every day. You're not messaging people every day. You're not going on dates every day. All right. And this is also a part of us being able to become the right person that we know we can be to be able to sustain the type of relationships that we're ultimately looking for. Okay. So Jenna, shout out to you. I appreciate you so much for the heart me and the gifts. Thank you so much over on TikTok. All right. And so I want to go ahead and dive into this. All right. And this will probably be a really quicker. Okay. I know I've said that a lot before, but this is actually going to be a more intentional and quicker conversation. All right. And again, I just encourage you to continue to build, get your notepads, get your journals, something to write with. You're going to want to remember this for those of you who are currently using dating apps. For those of you who are like, I don't know if I should use dating apps. For those of you who are like, I'm currently in it, don't know what to do. For those of you who are like, yo, I'm done, I'm never going back. You never know. All right. This is something that also you can pay attention to and use when it comes to dating in general. Absolutely. Phoenix, Jesus loves you too. Appreciate you a ton. And so let's look at this. Okay. The red flags, yellow flags, green flags on dating apps. All right. And the tension that we have to learn to hold when it comes to dating in general, all right, not just dating apps, but dating in general, is that people ignore red flags because you want connection. Okay. Or you call everything a red flag because you're scared. So there's two extremes that we finally find, okay, and that we can just put to words when it comes to dating in general. All right. And it's the idea that either you ignore red flags all over the place, whether that's within yourself or within people you're encountering, okay, simply because you want connection that bad. Or or you call everything a red flag. You're quick to look for red flags first, okay, simply because you might just be scared. And that's just a reality that we have to face, a truth that we have to just expose. All right. Because anything that we do out of fear is more than likely something that is not only replicating in other areas of our lives, but is easily slowing us down from being able to be exactly where we need to be and who we need to be in order to actually find the right person we want to experience relationships with. Okay. It's not about exonerating the feeling of being scared that gives you permission to date. Okay. It's not about eliminating that emotion. It's about holding tension with that emotion and realizing that even though I may feel scared in this moment, in this space, in this area, I can still press forward, okay, and engage by setting a temperature and a tone that makes the most sense for me and that makes the most sense for where I'm at and where I'm going. Okay. People don't get the privilege of rushing you. People don't get the privilege of hurrying you. People don't get the privilege of taking you and advancing you into stages that you are not ready for and that you don't agree to. All right. And that is a very important reality that we have to just kind of sit with. All right. And then also build on. Okay. And so, what we're really doing is honestly adding to what we've talked about earlier in the series when we highlighted discernment. Okay. Discernment on dating apps, because discernment is not just a muscle we use towards dating apps. Discernment is something that is a muscle that we're growing in everyday life. However, when we're talking about the topic of dating apps, discernment doesn't necessarily look different. Okay. We're just engaging with it, looking for different things. Okay. So obviously, when you're engaging in discernment for, let's say, playing sports, okay, making decisions, being honest about what you see. All right. You're looking for different qualities. You're looking for different paces. You're looking for different skill sets. Okay. As compared to if you were to look for a candidate to go on a date with. All right. So if you're going looking at basketball, trying to figure out who you want to add to your team as you're playing pickup basketball, obviously you're paying attention to who can move, okay, who can shoot, who can rebound, who can pass, who has vision, who can play defense, okay, who just has energy to be able to move on the floor, okay, different skills because we're in a different arena, so we're paying attention to different perspectives, right? Versus dating. All right. I'm probably paying attention to what? Communication skills. I'm paying attention to availability. I'm paying attention to consistency. I'm paying attention to so many other different things. It's not that we're not engaging in the muscle of discernment. It's just engaged differently based on the setting that we're in. Okay. And so now what we're doing is actually trying to build the strength of engaging in that discernment instead of leaning so far into fear or paranoia that either is causing you to call everything a red flag, that causes you to overthink, that causes you to hurry, that causes you to not choose anything, okay, to remain stagnant, to be afraid to make a decision, okay, and we're learning how to trust what we see. All right. So, of course, what I'm going to cover, yes, we're going to cover a various amount of red flags, yellow flags, green flags, but I do want to set the tone. Okay. Because how do we even determine what is a red flag, yellow flag, and green flag for where you are? Okay. Because a lot of what we're going to cover is maybe more so from a rooted level. But for a lot of you, you might be in different places. You might be in different spaces, ready for more and ready for different. Maybe you're looking at your life and what you've matured through and say, hey, I genuinely have the capacity for something a little bit deeper and something a little bit more. That's great. Okay. So, how we determine what a red flag, yellow flag, and green flag is for your experience and how you're navigating relationships, the dating field, dating apps in general, are through a few things. Number one is our values. Okay, let's just set the tone. How we determine a red flag, yellow flag, and green flag from this point forward is measuring what we see compared to our values. What are our values? Glad you asked. All right. I don't create this definition. This is a definition that comes from my good friend and coach, Dr. Zeb, who defines this as attitudes, principles, perspectives, beliefs that govern your life among the world around you. So when we talk about your attitudes, principles, perspectives, beliefs that govern your life among the world around you, what values do you have set in your life that you're looking at and saying, this is the evidence of me being in an aligned relationship? Okay. What are your values? And when we say values, I'm not just simply talking about you love Jesus, you love family, you love work, you know, and you go to church and all these things. Okay. When people talk about values, they often talk about the surface of things. I want you to dig deeper into that and peel the onion back and keep being curious as to asking why. Okay. So if you start out listing your values and they sound something similar to what I just rattled off, okay, family, Jesus, friends, I value work. I value all these other kind of things. Okay, cool. Why? I just want you to ask why. And the more that we ask why, the more we're going to get closer to what we'll call a core value. Okay, because the core values are just simply things that make up the feeling and experience that you create with the world around you. All right. So if we're saying you value family and you say why, well, what does family represent? You might say family represents closeness. Family represents quality time. Family represents connection. Family represents safety. Family represents whatever. Okay. And when we're talking about family, it's not just your immediate family. Maybe it's just people that you've grown close enough to that you consider family. All right. Regardless, these things are what's actually making up the core values that you create and you live by. So we have to be able to define those. And when we define those, this gives us a starting place, at least 5 to 7 as a good starting place. All right. This is a good starting place for us to look at and say, hey, what is considered a red flag for the season I'm in, for who I'm looking for, and the type of relationship that I say that I'm professing through my values list I care for and value most. Okay. So here's the trick. Some of y'all are going to create a values list and off rip, if you're honest, realize that you don't actually live according to your values. That's just the God honest truth. A lot of you are going to come to a conclusion as you create this values list, and you're going to look at it and say, I say I value peace and safety. But when I look around the relationships that I've carried in my life, they don't resemble that. Because when I choose to go around friends, there is everything but safety. We got history, we have familiarity, and we might even have a couple jokes and have fun from time to time. But it lacks safety, it lacks peace because this group chat, this friend group is nothing but drama. And that is what's going to blow your mind because what we're recognizing is I say I value peace, but in reality, what I'm doing doesn't align. So when we talk about values, we can't talk about values without talking about alignment. What's alignment? Another definition, not by me, but by my good friend and coach, Dr. Zeb, who defines alignment is when your thoughts, your words, and your behaviors agree. Okay. I think that's a great definition, a great working definition that he's created. I want to give him full credit for that. All right. But a great working definition that he's created that I think is beneficial to just simplifying what we talk about when we mean alignment. When my thoughts, words, and actions all agree. Okay. So if I say I value peace and I know that lack of peace in a relationship is a deal breaker for me, okay, then there's no reason I should still be in contact and going back to the toxic ex that I left because it was everything but peaceful. Okay, like there should be no reason I'm still engaged in a previous relationship with somebody who has not changed, that does nothing but add stress and drama into my life, and a reflection of misalignment somewhere where I don't really mean what I say I mean. Okay, I can't say I value relaxation and I value all these different truths, but yet I don't show up for what exactly is going to bring that more into my life. Don't tell me you value fitness and you don't even desire to go to the gym, let alone go. It's not about desire, it's just about showing up. Okay. Don't tell me that you value, uh, you know, healthy finances and every weekend is a spending spree on money you don't have. Don't tell me that because you're lying to yourself. And that's not doing anybody any favors. And most certainly is not helping you in your case of being somebody that's dependable, that's honest, that is, you know, integrous in various different lanes. And I would much rather you say you don't value something than to continue telling yourself you value it and then you don't do it. Now, here's the beautiful thing about the brain, the body. Okay. We talk a lot about that from a psychological standpoint from the work that we do here. Okay. The body learns in two different ways, what you do intentionally and what you do repetitively. Right. So the brain can't tell the difference between what's fake and what's real. And so the beauty in this is being able to speak life into yourself by saying you value something and speaking to the version of you that values it and then choosing to live up to it. It's requiring process, it's requiring progress, and it does happen when you're learning to value these things, becoming aware of moments when you don't exactly reflect that value. And instead of meeting yourself with various different levels of shame and guilt, okay, we make the decision to become aware of that and engage in it a little bit differently, right? Okay, this is what happened. This is how we messed up this time. What are we going to do next time so that this doesn't happen again, right? And we keep meeting that and we keep growing in that. That's growth and that's progress. Okay, that's part of growth. That's part of the healing journey. But there's many of you that say that you value something and you don't even desire to really change it. You think just being aware of it is where the change is, when in reality, it's not just being aware of it that creates change. It's the beginning step to change because now that we're aware of it, we have a responsibility to do something different about it. Okay. And so this is giving us the opportunity to build on trusting our decision making and more importantly, being able to build a strength, build the muscle of our discernment. Okay. That's what we're looking for. And it starts with values. Okay. Values and alignment. So to determine red flags, yellow flags, and green flags, what are your values? And before you start measuring up other people to the values that you've set, do you reflect these values in your own life? And I'm not asking you to go 10 for 10 to be 100%. We're not talking about perfection. We're not talking about perfectionism. All right. There are some values that you'll have and that you'll continue to add to your list that you'll be like, I do want to get there one day. And I'm putting the right things in place to build that, to grow that. Process and progress is important. We're not asking for perfection. However, there's a difference between being intentional about applying that and then convincing yourself you value something when in reality you really don't. That's a gut check. And we got to be honest about it. Okay. So values and alignment are really important to determine beyond this list that we're going to give, what's a red flag for you? What's a yellow flag for you? What's a green flag for you? Okay. And just so you know, what mainly falls in the category of a green flag is anything and well, not anything, but I would say majority of things that align with the version of you desire to be, the version of you that you desire to show up as in the relationships that you are going to build. Okay. I don't think there's many green flags you're going to find that causes you to go against the version of you that's abundant, the version of you that is consistent, the version of you that's intentional, the version of you that desires to be all that you want to be to create a growth mindset and setting an environment for a relationship you want to build. Okay. So now that we have that kind of covered, all right, values and alignment, we need to have those. So if you're someone who's like, yo, I see what I value. I've also recognized the capacity. This is another terminology that we use often around here. If I know the capacity that I have to be able to handle something, okay, then I'm putting myself in position to be able to express that capacity. So I'm not exactly expecting somebody to be where I am. Okay. I don't need someone to be exactly where I am and to see life exactly the way I see it in order to connect with them, to grow with them, to do life with them. Okay. We're all reflecting different levels of capacities based on the work we've done inwardly to deal with our internal world. So if we're honest about that, there are some things that you might find yourself having more freedom to do compared to others. This is why we should be mindful, right, of listening to everybody that is coming on social media platforms and telling you what you should and shouldn't do. Because sometimes people are really moving from places of what they are not available to do, what they don't feel they're ready to do, what they don't feel but they can believe that for themselves to do or experience, and they might be projecting that onto you. Now, that's not to say that we need to get into conversations of morality and all the things. That's a different conversation. All right. And then there's even lanes to that. We're talking about convictions and all the things. But we have to be mindful of our capacity, the measurement to which you're able to withhold something. That's a definition for capacity. The measurement from which you're able to withhold or withstand something. Okay. Just left the gym. All right. Lifting, repping, 235, 245 on bench is not an easy thing for a lot of people. Right? That same weight put on the bar for bench press might crush some because they don't have the capacity to withstand that level and measurement of weight. As soon as they get it off the bar, it ain't no good. When they go down, the weight is too heavy and they can't press it up. Okay. And I have capacity for that, but guess what? I'm building for capacity to be able to do that for 315. The whole nother animal in the beast. Okay. But just like you have to have a healthy capacity to be able to lift weight comfortably without hurting yourself in the weight room, right? But still able to test yourself, challenge yourself, and grow muscle. We're thinking of the same thing when it comes to relationships and dealing and connecting with people. Does that make sense? We need capacity, awareness of our capacity. We need alignment. We need values, and we just need honesty. Okay. We need capacity. We need alignment. We need values, and we just simply need honesty. We need honesty. Honesty about who you are, where you are, and what you're doing at any and all given moments. Okay? There's a lot of people who are struggling to date in today's culture, not just because the dating pool is what it is. And if you've been around me long enough, you know I'm not somebody to just blame the external. I think it's a lot of beliefs, approaches, and all of those things that are playing a role in the lack of experiences people are having in dating. Okay? That's not to ignore the obvious. However, that is to reframe it so we can actually find out what it is we need, and not just what we need, but continue growing into who we're becoming so that way we become available for the right love we're looking for. All right. But there's a lot of people who are not honest, not just about who they are, but about where you are and what you're available for. There's a lot of you who are measuring people as nines and tens because of how they look, and you don't even measure up to what is required to sustain the type of person you want. That's something we have to be honest. And that goes further than finances. Fellas, that goes further than finances. Matter of fact, I really do believe that if you actually lock in on your mental, emotional, and spiritual healing, your finances eventually will follow. There's different levels of capacities that we have to recognize where we are in every given season, and at the same time be able to engage in those healthily so we can make the healthiest relationships. There are so many people getting into these relationships and they are lost for words. They're lost for words, don't know what to do, don't know how to do, and can't do. And that's not necessarily because they're the worst person in the world. No, they just met something that's above their living, above their capacity, above what they're genuinely available for. If I were to paint it in a picture, it's like a plane ride. You got first class and you got economy. There are some things people are in first class on, right? That they have the ability to be able to experience because they can afford it. They have the capacity to afford it. Okay. Whereas economy, nah, not really. Economy is back there. Okay. Seat 32C in the back of the plane. They got peanuts for snacks. They got all that. Okay. This is giving us a picture that you get what you pay for. This is giving us a picture that you connect with and you arrive to where you need to be based on what's available for you. Okay. And so if we're looking at that picture regarding the plane ride, everybody in first class, economy, if we would compare that to the dating field and dating experiences, there's a lot of you who claim you're in first class and you're ready for something in first class, but yet your behaviors and lifestyle is reflecting economy. You want somebody that's faithful, that's consistent, that's loyal, that's all these things, and yet you fail to show that in any area of your life. But yet you think you have what it takes to put that together for a relationship with somebody that you're trying to date. I think not. At some point, there has to be a level of consistency. At some point, there has to be a level where you're just honest that this is not where you are. Okay. This is not what you are ready for. This is not what you have. And be honest about what you are ready for and what you do have. It's not so much about the negatives as much as it also is about the positives. So if you're moving in honesty, y'all, the red flags, yellow flags, green flags are not so complicated. We just have to call a thing, not just about what we see in other people, but also what we see in ourselves, the good and the things that still need healing and the things that still need work. And being honest about that. Because if you're honest about where you are, you're now giving yourself the permission to date on your level. And when you date on your level, you probably have a lot more success compared to continuously reaching for stars you're not putting yourself in position to receive and have. There's a lot of people who are struggling in these dating spaces because they're not dating on their level. They're not being honest with what they actually are available for. And it's not just people who are trying to, people sitting in economy trying to ride in the first class section. It's people in first class reaching back into the back of the plane trying to connect with people back there. Now, again, there's a conversation about capacity. If somebody who's in first class is like, yo, it makes sense to connect with this person in economy, and they have capacity to support this person's growth as they're developing and growing, it can work. But a lot of your healing and a lot of doing relationships in a healthy way is going to come from you making decisions. Okay. Is making decisions from places of alignment, places of agreement. It's going to help. And we're measuring first class and economy, not just based off status and what you have, money and gains and all the things. Because you may not necessarily have the finances, but you definitely are healed mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I would say that puts you in first class. So there's a direction that we have to move in where we just have to be honest about what we're available for. Okay. So I see a question in here. Chanel Ali says, well, what if I got upgraded for free? Like I can't afford first class, but I'm a hustler. I'm telling you this now. You can't hustle a healthy relationship. Can't do it. You either got it or you don't. You either have the qualities and willingness to build that, which is healthy, or you don't. Ain't nobody trading tickets and coming up and doing all this kind of stuff, making trades, playing the game. That kind of mindset is actually what keeps you in the economy. I think you should pursue on your level. I'm not saying you can't pursue first class people, but a lot of times you don't recognize what comes with being with somebody in first class, like emotional stability, like emotional availability and awareness, consistency, being able to handle no graciously. The way we're going to be able to determine if we should still pursue people in first class is, one, what part of my life represents first class, mentally and emotionally? Is there any area of my life where I can actually say that I can hold my own, and not just from a place of physical stature or status, and not just for the sake of having good conversation, but I can be intentional, I can be engaging, I'm consistent, honest about where I am, honest about who I am. I can communicate my emotions and not blame somebody else for what I'm feeling, but I can take responsibility and acknowledging this is how I felt as a result of what happened. Accountability and responsibility. Like, that's really important. So before you start trying to pursue somebody in first class, we have to define, okay, yes, in this analogy, what's first class and what's economy? First class is people who are coming into agreement and alignment mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Economy is filled with people who just don't. They don't care. They don't want to do it. They don't care to do it. And you kind of see the results. But how we're going to measure all these things, honesty, okay, which again brings about self awareness, but it's a beginning step. Okay. Honesty, capacity, values, and alignment. If we can reflect that, we're going to have a really, really awesome time in dating, better than what most people are experiencing, because we're not needing the field to change. Okay. Not needing the field to change, not needing other people to change to make you feel comfortable, not needing the environment in the dating pool to ease up for you to feel like you're now valid and available. Because I don't know if you've noticed yet, but like life just does not revolve around you as an individual. And so we have to make an adjustment, and that adjustment doesn't start with blaming other people, accusing other people, making other people the focus of the problem. It starts with, okay, what is it in me that this is actually shining a light on, that is inviting me to look deeper and inviting me to heal, inviting me to correct, inviting me to grow in, inviting me to another process to go deeper in my healing. Right? So if you've been around this entire process and this breakdown of this series, this has been the center of it. We're reframing the dating experience because it has way less to do with the poor dating pool that everybody's describing. That ironically, people are still getting married in, people are still having healthy marriages in, and people are still building healthy families in. So I don't really know what dating pool you're expecting, but the dating pool that you look at and that I look at, which is the same, we actually have different meanings towards. And that's what we're trying to get at. Your experiences are one thing. The meaning and story you attach to it is actually what is perpetuating the reality you're experiencing every day. I ain't going to go too deep into science, all that good stuff, but that's showing up. So if we're going to decide what's a red flag, yellow flag, green flag, we need those four things: honesty, capacity, alignment, and values. And then we're going to allow everything else to fall into play as we continue to engage with people, as we continue to build relationships, and being okay with not getting everything right, but making decisions from positions of being aligned. That's a lot healthier. It's not about going 10 for 10 from the field. It's not about going 100% from the field. It's not about making every decision the right decision. If I make the wrong decision, it's going to cost me. If I overthink it, God's going to be disappointed. God's not going to bring a marriage in my life. God is not going to do this. No. Let's slow down. Let's slow down. The same God that created the heavens and the earth, that spoke life into existence in 6 days, I'm pretty sure is the same God that is not looking around and is confused and lost at things that you're experiencing in your life, as if he just doesn't know what else to do. Doesn't know the next step, doesn't know the recovery plan, doesn't know how things are going to work out for you. A lot of times that's the pressure we're putting on ourselves because we're expecting ourselves to be perfect in so many areas that God honestly isn't. That's a word for somebody. Take the pressure off of yourself from getting everything right. It's what's kept you stagnant. It's what's kept you stuck. It's what's kept you moving in fear and not moving at all. Okay. So now that we have that kind of painted out a little bit further, all right, let's go into some red flags, yellow flags, and green flags. All right. So I got a few of them. All right. And again, this is not limited to, all right. This is not limited to this list. There's so many other things that you're going to go ahead and add to it in your own ways. Again, based on your values, where you are, what you're looking for from a healed, abundant place. All right. But these are a few that I think are really important to pay attention to as you're navigating dating apps and somebody who's like, yo, I'm stepping onto the dating field. Dating apps is my first try. I'm coming back to them. And this doesn't just apply to your dating apps, this applies to dating in general. Okay. Dating healthily and from a healed lens. All right. So we're going to go down this list and we're going to start with sexual pressure early. Okay. One red flag, all right, is sexual pressure early. What do I mean by this? Okay. Number one is that it's driven oftentimes by lustful factors. Okay. Whoever you're connecting with, whatever profile you see, as you read bios, as you read descriptions, as you read answers to prompts, you listen a little bit more to what this person is looking for. Talking about friends with benefits, talking about, just looking for a good time, just looking for a smash and dash, a hit and quit. Okay. Like a lot of people are just bold about it, just out there. Hey, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm on. All those kind of things. They legitimately have dating apps designed for just that, sexual explicit experiences for one moment. So of course, I'm inviting you to stay off of those because that ain't the way to go. But they're also on regular spaces too. Okay. So red flags like being invited to their house and living place as a first date or one of the first few dates. Okay. You doing the inviting or them doing the inviting. So red flag, red card. Okay. A lot of sexual hints in conversations. Eggplant emoji here. What you trying to get into tonight? Come to my place. We'll do this and do this here. Netflix and chill here. Okay. Like we can just be honest about it. And all the sexual hints that you'll get from pictures to I don't know, sexualized lyrics. Okay. A lot of sex jokes. You can tell what's on somebody's mind when they're moving like that. Okay. Sexual desires expressed explicitly in bios. I can't tell y'all how many times I've come across a bio and I'm just speaking from my experience. All right. And maybe there's a lot of you who can share that similar experience as you've looked at other profiles in your own time or just on social media. This ain't just dating apps, just on social media. Like I've seen too many women in their bios talking about they're looking for horses and not shrimps. What? 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 Yeah. Like we're just so caught up in trying to recreate fantasies that we're reading from books, from porn, and all these things that we are literally limiting options that make sense for you that you can't even see because you're so clouded by lust and you're so clouded by your pleasures in extreme places. Okay. Something that was said before is actually, there's two quotes that I'm reminded of from a well-known apologist named Ravi Zacharias. He had a controversial ending to his life. However, God used him mightily. Okay, that's kind of how I introduced him to. And he said something in one of his messages while he was living. Two things. Number one, that meaninglessness does not come from being weary of pain. Meaninglessness comes from being weary of pleasure. Would you write that down? Meaninglessness does not come from being weary of pain. Meaninglessness comes from being weary of pleasure. I'm going to say it one more time. Meaninglessness does not come from being weary of pain. Meaninglessness comes from being weary of pleasure. And it's oftentimes when you exacerbate the pleasures that you could possibly get into that now you're running into a wall of questioning everything and its meaning. Because everything you chased after on some type of high, you thought brought more meaning and value to your life. You thought brought more wholeness and completion to your life. And yet it didn't. It didn't satisfy you fully. It didn't leave you content. It left you raving for more. You had more. And yet here comes another dopamine hit of all these things that you're continuously chasing after that doesn't satisfy the hole in your soul. Right. And so there's so many people who are leading with all of these physical pleasures that, again, doesn't mean sex is wrong and sex is bad. But there is a healthy context to these things that allows it to actually be available in healthy, correct context. Not on a dating app as I'm reading profiles and I'm listening to what you're after and what you're about, and you're describing yourself in a sexualized manner. We just had a conversation on psychology of dating, and women filter their dating experiences through the lens of safety. So there's no shot that you think you're going to be able to experience healthy relationships like you say you want. And yet in your bio, and yet in your first messages, yet in the conversation, you're quick to run to having intimacy at levels that don't even make sense, that you're not even fully getting an experience on. And I can tell because you're rushing to a climax and you're forgetting the entire purposes of why said connection is even present. Y'all really don't want to have that conversation with me because you're gonna get exposed. A lot of y'all don't want to dive into that. And for this sake of the conversation, and because I'm low on time, I won't. But there's a lot of you who are running to these sexual pressures, sexual pleasures, and all these things as a means to connect, to show that you got it, to show that you're the man, to show that you still have it, or for the ladies, because you feel like this is the only way that this person is going to want you. This is the only way this person is going to love you. And that is all a reflection of conditioning, all a reflection of programming, and all a reflection of things that we don't maybe necessarily have to go so deep to figure out where it comes from, but recognize it's there and make a different decision to heal through that, to rewire our nervous systems so we're available for healthier and more. So, one of the biggest red flags that you can experience in this dating space is somebody applying sexual pressure early. Because I don't think you should expect to find quality matches and quality relationships when you're so quick to give it up to everybody. I don't think you should expect to find quality experiences and matches when you're so quick to open up your legs to everybody that's walking and breathing. At some point, standards have to be a thing. And I think that's something worth considering. Something worth considering. Okay. We're gonna run through these next few red flags because I got a whole lot to get through here. And next, like I got like 11, 15 minutes to do it. All right. So the red flag number 2. All right. Someone who is avoiding basic questions. You want to write these down. You want to remember them. Okay. Somebody who's avoiding basic questions. What are some basic questions? Things like, why are you on this app? What are you looking for? Okay. Why didn't your last relationship work? Because I'm assuming the things that you're going to tell me to get my attention are some things you've told other people that you either got their attention, it worked, and then it didn't. So I'm just curious, like, why? Those are some basic questions, y'all. This is not therapy. This is not cornering somebody. One of the things that I've noticed a lot of people do is like, I'm afraid of being therapized, or this is a therapy session being interviewed. Now, granted, okay, I know I've experienced that. And that's not even just like necessarily dating, just more so conversations with people. I tend to ask deep questions because I'm just a deep thinker. And so for those of you who fall into that category, you're a student, you love studying, you love learning, you love having deep conversations, and maybe it doesn't necessarily mean as much off rip for you to be able to have that conversation because you can have that conversation with a lot of people. You got to be able to learn how to reel that in, right? So it's important to not necessarily find yourself going so deep so soon. You just met them and they don't know you. And most people, when they're getting to know someone new, it is a very cautious experience. It's not so open, it's not so free. Most people are honestly in their own heads about themselves, about how they appear, less than they more than they are about wondering and making thoughts about you. A lot of times the story we'll tell ourselves is that people who are experiencing us in a lot worse of a fashion than how we're actually presenting ourselves to be. That's the story we're telling ourselves. That's not really what's happening though. So I'm not telling you that we need to go in and ask all the deepest questions and get deep off rip. Okay. But we should be able to ask basic questions. Why are you here? What are you looking for? Okay. Even if they're basic questions in regards to what you see on their app that drew curiosity and you're asking a question towards that. Okay. That's very important. Someone who can't answer basic questions, man, right? Basic questions are just questions that, it's drawing curiosity, it's building on conversation, and it does continue to get you an opportunity to learn more about this person without going so deep that you're so emotionally invested and connected to this person that you still don't know. Okay, so we're not asking about family history the first time we match an open conversation. We're not asking about worst therapy experiences. We're not diving into traumas. We're not trauma dumping. We're not doing any of that. Those conversations really aren't reserved for that level and stage of a connection. Those stages of connections, when you first open up, you first have messages, you first have conversation, they should be more centered on fun. They should be more centered on interest. They should be more centered on similarities. They should be more centered on, passions, things you guys are excited about. What are some things that you guys would enjoy possibly doing together? Now, as you have more conversations, and of course, based on your capacity, maybe you are ready to have deeper conversations, but we move slowly. We don't need to hurry, but we do need to be able to have basic questions answered. And if they can't answer questions like why they're here, what they're looking for, and even to the extent of why didn't their last relationship work, this might not this we probably need to keep looking. Okay? Those are three basic questions and there probably can be a list of others, all right? But avoiding basic questions is a red flag. Number 3, inconsistent communication. Now, we have to be careful of how we label inconsistent communication. Y'all, not everybody who is who's giving delayed responses means that they don't care, means that they don't like you, means that you're not worth it, or whatever story we're trying to attach to that. Okay, believe it or not, and I'm here to tell you as somebody who is one of those people that has the tendencies to give delayed responses. I have a full schedule regularly. I do. Clients, you know, live streams, okay? Busy helping around the home and the crib. Like, I'm not on my phone 24/7. I'm not on my phone I'm not waiting by the phone for responses. And so some of us are going to have to be able to accept that not every delayed reaction or response means that they don't care and they're wasting your time. Okay? Because there's a lot of things that could be happening that is leading up to a delayed response that has less to do with you, less to do with what you aren't. Okay. And especially when you match with somebody on a dating app and there's not necessarily an immediate direction where we're already on the phone, we're already in FaceTime, center and stages and all the things. Listen, y'all, people are not obligated to respond to you in 24 hours on a dating app. Like, we just have to let go of that entitlement. They are not obligated to respond to you in 24 hours. Right? Now, we know the energy that people will move with. So it's not necessarily something that we have to play around and we have to cling to and we have to add all these different stories to make ourselves feel comfortable. And at the same time, let's not add that expectation of, hey, you are supposed to respond to me when I text you. A lot of people are in this space, and this is why you have to be careful with all the therapeutic virtue signaling conversations people are having, because people will love to tell you that they're anxious attached, and then will easily tell you in that same breath that their desire isn't to change it, but to make sure you bend to their attachment style. That is dysfunctional. That is straight dysfunction. Now, I'm not saying that you are, that there isn't room for this person to work with you and to support you in your journey to healing your attachment style, but don't come on here telling us that that you demand somebody to respond to you every two, in the first 2 minutes of a text back from you, or you're just going to assume they don't like you and they're just going to have to deal with it. Dealing with somebody like me, I'm going to just say no and keep it pushing. You ain't got to worry about it. You don't got to worry about it. Okay? So this is definitely measured by expectations, and not every delay means inconsistency, nonchalance, or not caring. So let's be mindful, okay, of what we're doing. It's a great question, followed up by an interesting statement. Okay, Leah asked, "How long should you realistically give before deleting the match if they don't communicate?" Yeah. So I think if there's a match, okay, let's say obviously the animation is a match, and one, there isn't a message sent. Okay, it wasn't a prompt answered. It wasn't a message sent. It was just a liked profile. I say a good comfortable state. You know, I'd say 5 days can be a good start. Now, again, that's not to say that we're waiting by the phone for them to respond in 5 days. But listen, y'all, I think especially when we're engaging in the dating apps, I do think because you're on there and if you're intentionally looking for somebody to connect with, I do think there's a world where you're on there, you're setting some time aside regularly, not all day, but you're setting some time aside to swipe and you're making connections. So we shouldn't be on these dating apps. And when we make a swipe and we swipe right on one account, all right. Um, if they're active in between, you know, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Because I'm somebody that looks at this so differently. Okay. And I know it's definitely not common. So this is why I'm inviting you to just stay curious. I think again, from everybody's vantage point in experiencing dating apps and experiencing dating, I don't think we should be so caught up in someone's response timing that we find ourselves looking more for that to the point where we're halting all operations until this person responds. Like I think that just defeats the purpose. I think we definitely know the energy somebody comes with when they are, they like what they see, they want to engage, and they want to do that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody who wants to engage and is interested is all of a sudden going to be blowing up your phone, sending messages back and forth. Okay. Like sometimes there's literally delays because there's so much going on. Or this person has a schedule, they're trying to implement dating again. Like there's just so many other things that could mean behind the delay instead of it being they don't care, they're not interested, and they were just playing around. And so like I'm honestly someone that's not even necessarily ever in a hurry to unmatch with someone because they don't respond to a message I've sent. Um, I think if anything, I'm probably going to unmatch based off of, okay, am I ready for something more right now? Right? Am I ready for more conversation with this person right now? Am I ready for more conversation to actually build something intentionally moving forward? Okay. And that's fine. If that, like, I think everybody's standard is different, right? So if you're saying, hey, yours is 3 days, that's cool. I'm not mad at that. I just want us to stay curious because sometimes, y'all, like, I think you might be surprised. Let's say there was a match that happened and it surpassed the 3 days without communication. And, you ended up getting a message on the fourth day, on the fifth day, because you kind of forgot to unmatch. And then that turned out to be a great conversation. Y'all were going back and forth. And then all of a sudden it advanced to something. Now, I'm not saying to move with that potential or to cling to that. I'm just saying we want to move in a level of abundance where we're not necessarily too clingy to somebody's response time in an app that they are not obligated to respond to in a time that works best for you. And like I get it if like they're just different, they're definitely not engaging in it. That's cool. They lost out. That's cool. And it sounds like you're ready for more. And if that's how you move in your relationships and that's how you want to go about connecting, that's cool. But I just want us to be curious on it though, because again, you might match with somebody and it might be 3 days, and there you might not hear too much from them outside of the message that you sent. Okay. All right. Or, you know, you might not hear too much from them after the message that they sent and you responded to. Right. And, I just think there's a way that we can move abundantly where we're not necessarily too concerned about that. And that's just how I view it, because that just takes off less stress. And I'm definitely not offended. And again, if it's 3 days, 5 days, you can definitely unmatch. I don't think it's a right or wrong thing to unmatch with somebody in that direction. I just think, all things considered, sometimes is not what we think. So I 3 days, 5 days, cool, cool. Nelly asked a good question. Then why be on a dating app if they aren't going to actively engage? And I hear that, right? And I think that is something that we, as people who are moving intentionally, are considering, right? So if I'm intentional about the time I'm spending, who I'm matching with, who I'm connecting with, and who I want to engage with, then that means that I'm actively ready for conversation, right? I know what I'm looking for and I know what I'm ready for. And if I match with somebody and the energy just doesn't necessarily, not necessarily says it has to match it or reciprocate it off rip, but I can tell, like, obviously, maybe this is just something that I'm not going to wait around for. And there's a lot of other options that I can move on to. Right. Well, of course, I'm not going to halt all of my attention and time to get this person to respond. Yeah. Unmatch. Like I've unmatched a few people for sure. And I'm pretty sure I have more to unmatch as well. Right? Because it's just okay, it's not going anywhere. And as we talked about last week, right? When there's no direction, or last episode, when there's no direction, the conversations definitely die. Right. And so of course there needs to be some level of, hey, I'm getting back to you, responding to you. There needs to be some direction in the conversation. And especially if the conversation is something that is building, like y'all are actually engaging in some interesting conversation to your taste and satisfaction, you might respond every 2 days. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I think that's cool. I think we should be mindful of our expectations and just be curious about them. Because if I'm putting an expectation on somebody to respond in a certain amount of time, obviously, if that's how you feel and that's where you're moving, cool. Obviously, that's probably going to help you navigate who you're dating with and who you're engaging with. So maybe again, if you match it, then takes them longer than 3 days to respond or anything, then feel free to move on. But I would hate for you to miss out on something that could be helpful for you, all because, we interpreted the delayed responses to mean something that it really wasn't. You know? That's it. Does that make sense? Let me know if that does or if I need to go a little further, because I can for sure. Um, is it correct to block if they ask to move to WhatsApp or what your job is right away? Uh, is it correct to block? I mean, I'd be curious on why. Why do you feel the need to block in that moment? What if you're talking outside of an app and they are slow responding? I'm good with it. They are busy. Yeah, yeah. So again, like, I've done it. I've matched, taken things out of the app, and it was a slow response. Like, but again, that's not. I just don't have those high expectations because we're just meeting. I still don't know you. We haven't met. There hasn't been a first date. We haven't met. We're still in the process of getting to know each other. I don't hold those expectations of, like, okay, now that we're moving to phone numbers, like, yeah, we need to be texting regularly around the clock. I think some of that is just like that's the meaning we're attributing in the event that numbers are exchanged. And I think we should stay curious about that, because it doesn't have to mean that. And also doesn't have to mean that once we get numbers, then we just don't talk. Right? Like, we don't have to go, tit for tat in extremes. I'm just saying, if they're slow responding, one, if it's something that you feel it challenges your progress with this type of relationship or where it is, feel free to mention that. Hey, I'm curious, what are your expectations for our talk time now that we're outside of the app and we're messaging personally? That's a great way to know. So that way you're able to manage your expectations, right? I think that's a great way to know. I think again, people have lives, people have responsibilities, people have things that they're doing, and it's not always centered on, you know, texting first and letting you know when their day is happening. Like, y'all, I've been through the ringer where my anxious attachment was going crazy, and I was super interested in this girl, and bam, like I was going crazy. Like constantly checking my phone for latest notifications, messages, and I had to learn through that experience. Like, one, she was never obligated to message me in a time that made me feel most comfortable. Two, that exposed. I looked at that as a mirror, not as something that was a problem or an enemy. I looked at that as a mirror. That was exposing something in me that I needed that level of attention early on to feel safe enough to keep engaging in the relationship. And that to me was more rewarding than her responding in a time that made the most sense, because that exposed some anxiousness in me that I had to deal with, y'all. And that's what I'm wanting y'all to be, to engage with. I'm not saying someone who really is interested won't show those signs. They very well can. But I'm also saying people who are legitimately interested may not necessarily have all the time in the world to be able to do that regularly. And that's something that we should just stay open about, you know? And not necessarily feel like, okay, them being slow to respond means they don't care, they don't like me, they're not interested. It doesn't have to mean that. It doesn't. And that could open the door for us to have more conversation on, hey, what are our expectations with this at this stage of us meeting? Are we texting every day? And I think communicating that is beautiful. Are we texting every day? Are we FaceTiming every week? What is it? Right? Because I actually ended up in that same reflection that I'm referencing, man. I ended up having like a, and I've shared it before, but it was a rejection that took place, and then I followed up maybe like a couple weeks later, because it was something that was really heavy on my heart, and I was just at that time I was just so befuddled. I was like, man, what is going on? And so we had a clarity call, is what I like to call it, and we communicated even at that time, like, okay, what are the communication processes going to look like? Like, how often are we texting? How often are we connecting? How often are we calling, FaceTime, all the things? I even remember asking, like, hey, so, like, is it too much? Like, if you're having a busy day, you know, let me know. And it was too much. It was impossible. It was like, no, because we weren't even there yet, y'all. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's different layers of relationships, man, where those things are fairly required, not when you just met them. Not when you just met them. Like, we have to move at a different pace with a lot of those things. Okay. Not when you just met them. Yeah, Nelly, great question. I actually break all this down in my secure program, and I have the first week of it free. If you're interested, send the message secure, and I'll be sure to get you started on that. Okay, you'll go through an animated process to answer some questions, and we'll be sure to get you the next steps, because everything that I did to deal with the anxious attachment and get to secure attachment is literally installed in that program, and you have the first week of it for free. Okay, it would be a whole lot for me to just unpack here, but I would love for you to do that. Okay, so DM me a message there and we can get started. What if you send a snap of yourself and you're left on red? Um, I mean, you left on, yeah, okay, fear of scam. Okay, I got you, Leah. Yeah, I don't necessarily think it always has to mean scam. I mean, unless you've been scammed literally by those moments, and I can understand the fear that's present there. Um, like, what else could it mean is what I would be curious of asking. Somebody asking you, what do you do for work, when they match and all those things. Um, what else could it mean? And if it is something that makes you uncomfortable, because technically in most dating apps they do have a section where you are able to share what it is you do for work. So, you know, I mean, they can easily read that, and that can be a starter to the conversation. But I mean, if somebody asking you and sending you a message about your job is something that makes you feel uncomfortable, I definitely think you should include that somewhere in your bio where you're like, hey, you should not go out with me. Maybe there's a prompt that says that or something along those lines. And that's something you include. You should not go out with me if your first question is what I do for work. I mean, that can weed out some people, you know, but I would just be curious, what else could it mean? And then Michelle, what if you send a snap of yourself and you're left on red? I I think I honestly don't know what to think with that. Um, if you're left on red, maybe it's like, okay, so maybe this isn't necessarily as serious as I'm ready for, that they're ready for. I'll just keep it moving. You know, what is the expectation behind you sending the snap of yourself? Is it that they send a snap of themselves? Is it that a conversation starts? I think again, there's some of that that carries some assumptions that we want to be mindful of. But again, if like it's kind of like, all right, if I exchange numbers and I send a message and there's no response, like okay, cool. So I'm gonna just keep it moving. On to the next. And I think sometimes we might get so caught, like I think because you can actually use dating apps in such a healthy way without it looking like you're just for everybody and moving so desperately, y'all. Like there's so many ways where you don't get so caught up on the one person that gave you their number or, that wanted to talk off the app and then didn't. You don't get so caught up on that like if they in the event that it doesn't make maybe happen, nothing comes from it, that it literally disturbs you and it disrupts you. And that doesn't mean that you're desperate. It doesn't mean that you're back on the app chasing and all the things that you're running from rejection and you're avoidant and all like no. It's just like, fam, I'm actually just I'm building conversations, I'm connecting with people. Remember, y'all, the whole purposes of these dating apps is so that it's beginning stages to conversations. We're not walking down the aisle when we match. This isn't going to marriage. This isn't no. I'm just beginning conversations. Beginning conversations is the focus. People steal your photos and use them for scams. To move on to another platform after knowing them 40 minutes. Um, yeah, yeah, I get it, Leah. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair, right? I definitely think a part of the process is having some conversation in the app, and then, you know, let that kind of sizzle and marinate for a few days. Okay. I look at it like this. Listen, if you're so burnt out or lazy that you don't respond on the dating app, then okay, cool. That probably means that you may not be taking this as seriously. And I'm gonna just keep it moving. I'm gonna just keep it moving. I don't really pay attention too much to people in there. Like they're like, I'm not on here much, so send me a message on Instagram. It's like, I could, and that's not a problem either. But I also recognize too that just lets me know, like, okay, maybe you're just not too serious about this whole thing. And I'll just keep it moving. No pressure. All right, y'all. I got to wrap up. All right, because I got to get to this call literally in like a minute. So we didn't even cover all the red flags. Okay. And obviously yellow flags, green flags. And so this is what we're going to do. We're going to pick back up on this tomorrow. We're going to do a part two. We're going to cover the rest of the red flags along with the yellow flags, green flags, and all the things. Okay. And we're going to double down on that. So be sure to stay tuned, follow for more. Okay. Subscribe, YouTube, Instagram, follow. Be sure to pay attention to my story posts as I post the next flyer for tomorrow's live, and we'll build from there. Okay. If you guys are interested in taking next steps to all things related to becoming more secure so you can date healthily, love healthily, be you healthily in a secure manner, be sure to go to the top of my page and click the link so that you are able to take your free diagnostic. All right. That is really, really important. Matter of fact, that's the only thing I'm going to point you to. Take that free relational diagnostic so you know where you are in all areas of relationships, so you know exact next steps you need to take to be able to get to the healthy you. All right. And then be sure to send me a message with the word secure. If you're interested in getting into my secure program, I have a first week trial for free designed for you to be able to take your beginning steps to coming out of your anxious attachment, out of your avoidant attachment, and moving into secure attachment. Okay. So be sure to do that. If you can't do any of that, be sure to subscribe, follow for more. All right. I know this is leaving off on a weird spot, but we're going to pick this back up, finish the red flags, and culminate the rest of the flags, and obviously have some applications to leave off for next time. All right. So I appreciate you guys a ton. We'll talk soon. And as always, until next time, be easy and be breezy. Peace.